Our cells are listening constantly and listening to the environment, what's happening. And if we don't move through it and heal it, it's going to feel like that threat is still there and react accordingly. And that's how it shows up as autoimmune issues, as cancer, etc.
Whatever psychic issue we're having, if it's addiction, if it's neuroses, is an expression of some type of pain that we're avoiding. The medicine's worse than the cure, and this turning toward it, the being with the pain and the discomfort. You think it's going to kill you, and then you realize it doesn't.
Well, as kids, we're very dependent on people around us, and that's a huge statement because that's what drives us to ignore, shove things down, just to get through. But then we become adults and we still can continue those patterns, or we can choose like, oh, I'm not a kid that's dependent on people and things around me. I can choose how this is going to look and do something differently.
Welcome everyone to Inner Work. So excited to have Dr. Julie Kennedy here with us today. She is a board-certified nurse practitioner with a background in functional medicine, business, and holistic health. And she blends science and integrative practices, which I've personally experienced, to help clients heal and thrive. And boy, is that the truth. And you draw on your own health journey, Julie, and your decades of experience. And so one of the things I'm so interested in hearing from leaders, from founders like you, is we build these things. We're trying to build the empire, right, that can change the world. And what does leadership look like for you these days?
So there's a lot of growth. I had this team that I'm building. I mean, my practice has only been in place for a year and a half. So there's been a lot of leaning on people to bring in their specialties.
Yeah.
Not micromanaging. It's really saying, hey, I need you to take the lead and I trust your judgment. These are my goals. This is some gentle guidelines, but really allowing people to take the lead. And so, yeah.
How has leadership taught you that?
Well, in the past, I would try to do everything myself.
And maybe you had to, right?
Yeah.
As a solo entrepreneur, that was a part of it. Yeah.
Well, initially when I started, it was just me. I actually left my job pretty suddenly because of being sick. And then I just kept feeling called to start my own practice. And I thought, okay, God, I trust you. I am going to go with this. And I'm just going to take it slow. I didn't have any funds. I didn't know if I'd have patience. And so I thought I'll just take a leap and I'll do everything at first. And within a few months, had an admin hired. And she really helped me build some of those, systems, the foundational pieces that I needed, that I was missing just because I just kind of started.
Right.
Just went with it. So,
Amazing.
but yes, at first it was me doing everything. And then, I realized that to be the most efficient and productive, I had to delegate and trust the people that I hired to do what they, were trained and educated to do. So,
yeah. One of the things I've noticed in my life is there are moments, usually of crisis. I'd love for it to not be crisis, but usually really tough moments where I've realized I've gone one direction or the other. I've gone too far in that direction and I'm having to pull back. Was there a specific moment for you that you remember saying, I've got to shift in how I'm handling these tasks and I've got to approach how I'm guiding my team differently?
Well, I would say yes, I've had those moments of crises, and usually it shows up as health issues.
Mm.
Uh, but this time around, because I have had those experiences that you're talking about, I was able to get to that place quicker, just with that awareness that
Mhm.
I'll be much more productive and efficient, and the clients that we see will have better service and care if I let people do their job and me do my job.
That's right.
Yeah,
So the I think you're speaking to resilience actually and lessons learned that you were able to make that shift sooner because you'd been through this cycle before perhaps.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
it's definitely resilience and it's a practice too.
Mm.
Um, I would say it's always shown up for me as health issues, being type A and driven.
Yeah.
Uh, I wear myself out in the past trying to do all the things.
Mhm.
And you do have a sense of that as a business owner. I'm still in the end the accountant, the marketing person, the business practice manager, the provider.
Yeah.
I still look over everything because I am in the end the one that, sacrifices the most,
That's right.
pays the most consequences.
That's right.
So I found even when I delegate as much as I can, you still have those hats that you wear and you participate in. So
Absolutely. So you said your health has always been an indicator for you. And when did that start? When was the first time that you noticed your body was telling you before your brain was ready to recognize?
I would say college.
Yeah.
I had leadership roles in college. Plus, I was working and going to school.
Mhm.
And, in addition to all the other hats that we wear as friend, family member, etc., girlfriend at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, when you're trying to do all those things and you only have so much time and energy, usually it shows up for me as fatigue and adrenal exhaustion. So
Mhm. Mhm. Were you always pursuing the medical field or did your health guide you there?
it did. My health did guide me there. I was in the medical field, just traditional medicine.
Mhm.
And when I was 19, I was diagnosed with lupus. And so I was put on traditional medicines, which actually the medicine is what made me more sick.
Wow.
And when I couldn't find an answer to some alternatives, that's when I just started seeking myself and treating myself with more natural treatments. And so I have many stories like that over the last 30 years that have led me to do what I do and practice the way I practice.
It's incredible. And you've got that traditional Western training, but you're bringing in a different side of medicine than many of us have experienced. And it sounds like a lot of your own gut level instinct and wisdom.
Yeah, that's interesting you mentioned that because that's something that I've really tuned into and leaned on more in the last few years.
Yeah.
Because when you are traditionally trained, it's a lot about the research, the science, what we see, the peer reviewed evidence based medicine. And I
Right.
still practice that, but
Mhm.
I couple that with the intuition as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. I do my coaching certification is through New Ventures West, and I do one of their book studies as a part of my ongoing certification. And we just had a book study over the book Already Free, and it's about the intersection. And as a Christian, it's especially an interesting study intersection of Buddhism and psychotherapy. And so the author talks about the developmental view, which is that Western perspective, versus the fruitional view, which is the Buddhist perspective or the abundance mindset. If we looked at it from a more Western or Western acceptable philosophy, and there can in many ways be interpreted as opposites. But
Yeah.
if we pull what's helpful from both, we get this really nice blend and balance. Is that at all kind of how you think about blending your Eastern and Western.
Yeah, that's such a good way to look at it for sure. Um, some of it is, I mean, just personal experience, or whether it's me and my own health or clients I've seen over the last 15 years. Because before I started this practice, I had a health coaching business, which is how you and I met,
That's
actually.
right. That's right.
Um, and so just transitioned into this, but I I would say life experience, experience with clients, and experience in my own health. But yes, blending all the things is such a powerful experience, and
Mm,
it really has helped people heal.
yeah. Speaking from experience, it absolutely does. And how much, it sounds like there's a trusting your gut piece there. Do you find that clients have an innate ability to appreciate that? Or is it something that you find yourself, oh, I better find the facts to back this up?
No, I actually believe that they trust that, but I encourage people that this is what I'm feeling, but what are you feeling? And so it's building their own, trusting their gut and their intuition. I see a lot of people that have had trauma, and learning to trust self is also part of their healing.
That's
And
right.
so giving them the opportunity to say, you're the one that has to live with whatever consequences happen. Even that if that's a rash from trying a new supplement, that seems kind of minor, but
Right.
it is a consequence. And so, this is what I recommend. What is your intuition telling you?
Yeah.
And so it's been a beautiful thing to watch people trust themselves again and not lean in on providers all the time or what someone else is telling them to do. So,
That's right. Well, I think about that as a coach and in my work with clients as well, there's this temptation to be the one with answers, to be the one who knows, because then I have a longer term contract or this person leans on me and that's more predictable income, but it's not sustainable and it's not honoring to the person and to the system because they don't become self sustaining. They don't learn to evolve on their own.
so true. Yeah.
No. It's funny though, because when we started working together, I really wanted you to be the expert and figure it out for me because I had a lot of other things to figure out.
Yeah.
And there's a place where you did that, but then you would ask the questions around uh, what sense, you'd offer something that does that make sense? How is that resonating with you? Or what's happening for you? Or what are your other practices? And I almost wanted it to be more like Western even though I didn't want Western medicine, traditional, there was a part of me that wanted that convenience of, no, you just tell me, give me the prescription, I'll go fill it, and then I don't have to think about this whole thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, that's what we were trained is,
Yeah.
I mean, just as on the patient side, that's how we were trained is what does the doctor say? That's what I do. And
Mhm.
just do that. And, medication, for instance, is it changing someone's blood pressure with a medication is a much quicker effect than me trying to say, okay, you're going to change your diet, you're going to manage your stress, you're going to
Absolutely.
sleep more.
Mhm.
That takes way more energy and time than just taking a little pill with some water every day.
Sure.
So, but I've shared this with you before that I see people just like us every day. It's a God thing, it's an energy thing, whatever you want to call it. But everybody I see is type A and has their own business or they're
Absolutely.
deck in some way.
Yeah.
Um, so that not listening to our health and what we need,
Mhm.
typically that's a common theme. And it's usually learned the hard way through some sort of illness.
That's right.
Um, so yes, teaching people that piece that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Because even your example there that you're like, yeah, 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 I'm busy. I can't look at my health. That's just sitting over here.
Right. Right.
That's a very That's a common way to look at our health when we're type A, because we're
Mhm.
too busy to be down, to be sick, to
Yep.
be thinking about our bodily functions. They should just work until they
Right.
die. And then that's when I see people.
That's right. Well, and I think that's how we got where we are. So I've been thinking a lot about our childhood experiences, how they shape us. And part of how I achieved was through denying myself, through denying my own needs and saying whether it's a goal somebody else created for me or this external construct that society has created, I'm going to figure out how to conquer it. And that's going to mean a lot of, exactly to your point, can't be in a bad mood, can't be upset, need to be optimistic, need to be winsome. It's like you barrel, or I would barrel through life until you hit the brick wall. And then there's this peeling back the layers of starting with, what do I actually want?
Yeah.
Which is a very existential crisis-y kind of thing to go through.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Marianne, because it's like that denying and listening because we're trying to achieve something is a significant theme that happens across all type A people. I was just watching this little clip from American Sniper, so random. I'd never
Oh, yeah.
seen that movie. I mean, I've always really heard of Chris Clark.
Yeah.
Uh, but they did a little clip on their Navy SEALs training, and they're
Mm,
sitting there in the cold, they're getting sprayed, they're sitting in the ocean. I've seen
for
these
sure.
trainings before,
Mm,
but it is that whole training their mindset to ignore, to numb out, to tolerate, and that's what we've done to achieve. And so part of getting people to ultimate health is calming their nervous system down
mhm.
and retraining that so that we are actually listening and not ignoring.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not that you would think our mentality would think, well, that's going to slow me down. I'm not going to achieve as much.
Mm,
But actually, what we're doing with that ignoring anything and not
mhm.
listening to the intuition and our health is actually not sustainable.
Right.
So
Yeah.
by slowing down and listening, not only research shows we're more productive, but it's a more sustainable speed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've been asking people this question, and now since you're an expert in this, I'm going to ask you,
Yes.
can we start off that way? So if and I'm trying to teach my kids these things, but there's a part of me also that wants them to know how to conform, wants them to know how to achieve. I want them to do intense sports because that's how I learned to push my body and be self-disciplined. And we all kind of repeat our experience with our kiddos. But I wonder if I could have been self-regulating my whole life, or if being true to yourself when you're a child, if I would just want to watch TV and eat Doritos all day.
So I do believe in seeking that balance.
Yeah.
So, sitting like you're saying, watching TV, eating Doritos is one speed. And then you have over here and the effect of the Doritos and things like that, the lifestyle that has its own impact, right?
Yeah.
But that slower speed of life, that less stressful life from a mental perspective, they actually show higher rates of longevity.
Yeah.
And you have kind of our group that we're talking about today, um, that I often see autoimmune issues and cancer. How the stress is the common theme. And I do believe that we can train that from a young age. And I see people just like you with little kids every day. And I have a background in pediatrics.
Yeah.
I do see some kids
Mhm.
like one on one in this office,
Yeah.
but I actually see them indirectly through their parents every single day.
Holy smokes.
Yes. So it's pretty crazy because
Mm.
not only are they learning new habits, but they're speaking them out loud. Their kids are seeing them model those things, and they're teaching them. I mean, I
Mhm.
just had this conversation last night with a couple that I see, and their little boy was struggling, and
Mm.
they're like, "What do we do? This is why we were in the hospital." And so we talked about stress management techniques, and finding that balance, like go, 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 but listen and rest as
Yeah.
well, because that will give them less disease, less risk for disease,
Um,
and to keep them going for longer.
yeah. That brought tears to my eyes just thinking about in that we as parents do we're not on a fixed path either. What we're learning and how we're healing can impact our kids today
For sure.
and far into the future.
For sure.
Oh my
I had a
goodness.
children's counselor tell me when I asked her about, so I have a daughter, and talking about eating and healthy eating, and I I have a background of, disordered eating, body dysmorphia, and I see a lot of clients that do as well. It's a very, high percentage.
Yep.
And so I wanted to be very mindful of how I talk about food, how I talk about or don't talk about how I look or obsess about it in any way. And these are
Yes.
things I've had to relearn and retrain in my own self.
Yeah.
And so she gave me this concept of just thinking out loud. So, if I eat pizza, which I do, people are like, "Oh, you don't eat that." Oh, yeah, I do. 60 to 70 I believe in balance.
Mhm.
60%, 70% of the time, 80% of the time I eat well, and then I go enjoy dinner with family, with friends,
Mhm.
celebrations, etc.
Yeah.
And so if I eat the pizza, I may say something like, "Wow, this is why I only do this every now and then because I just don't have as much energy."
Mm.
So I'm not saying, "Oh, you don't need to eat that. You shouldn't eat that." I just speak about my own experience out loud
Mhm. Mhm.
and try to do that in as healthy of a way as possible
Right.
for, all lessons. And yes, that's, something we're relearning as well.
Mhm. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And I hear in part of that practice is a gentleness, right? Where I learn to be forceful, to be direct in some ways, in other ways to be a pleaser. So it's always this juxtaposition, right?
sure.
Um, but a gentleness, an appreciation, a noticing around the experience of it that's really personal for me, but I'm sharing it in a way that other people can interpret it in a way that makes sense for them.
Sure.
There's a much more, it's not passive, but it's a much more um, gentle way to approach it, to share what we're learning.
Sure. And I mean, I would say we've all been there where someone's saying, well, you should do this, you should do that. I actually went to church and heard a new pastor, and he was saying that. And that's something I'm really mindful of trying to say. It's something we all need. So, including myself, like something we all struggle with, something we all should be mindful of.
Uh-huh.
Instead of, you should be mindful of this, you all should
Right.
do this, you should do that. It's
The power of
right.
language. Yes.
Yeah. And it just
Absolutely.
rubbed me the wrong way.
Uh-huh.
Like, "Oh, we're sinners, but you're not." I mean, it was just more of a, like, a personal thing that kind of evokes that in me. So,
Well, I think it may have done that for a lot of other people too that were listening. Um, but you may have become much more sensitive and you can pick those things out immediately. Whereas kids in the audience or people who haven't done some of the inner work that you've done would say, you're right, I am a sinner. You're right. And that, which of course we're sinners, but you're right, I am that way. Right. Instead of being able to pick up on some of the nuance of that approach.
Yeah,
And so kudos to you for being able to be in that space and be so present to it.
for sure.
Yeah. For those of us who are on this path of noticing our stress response, who we would identify as type A and achievers, what are some of the first signs that we can look for that change is needed?
I mean, I typically see fatigue, irritability, grabbing for outside things that we know are not healthy.
Yeah.
Uh,
You're basically talking about just being a person. Right.
yeah.
Just being an adult in America.
uh I would say that kind of feeling out of control, feeling like I know that I don't need to do this, but I just need to feel better.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That meaning like it's a quick fix because we're
Right.
just desperate.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, fatigue, irritability, and then doing something that, we know there's better options, but we feel like we're stuck.
Like the sense of I can't explain it. Like I don't want to do it, but I do it anyway. That and I heard a sermon about that recently. Like if that's a feeling that you have, there might be an addiction going on of some sort, an attachment, right, to that particular behavior that we can't really explain, but it's somehow we're trying to meet a need
Right.
that we don't know how. And so it's like all these symptoms are pointing us toward unmet needs, right?
Yep. And that's a lot of the coaching that I do is when you're talking about addiction, for instance, addiction can be things that maybe aren't as socially acceptable, like the drugs, alcohol, sex addicts. But then there's people who overexercise or they get so fixated on their healthy eating, for
Or
instance,
work,
or work,
workaholic. Yeah.
achieving
Yeah.
1,000%. I mean,
Yeah.
this is our people.
Yeah. Right. That's right.
But when we slow down enough and get in tuned enough to say, what am I missing? Where does that come from?
Mhm.
What am I needing? That's, the root. That's
Yeah.
what I do. And everything is what's the root cause. And then fixing that, working on that,
Yeah.
that will treat the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a gentle, again, a gentle way to step into it. How do you, when you're working with a client that you can see so clearly that there's an emotional component but they're not willing to see it. What do you do to what language do you use? How do you help them start to see that it's really more there's more to it than just getting the medicine?
I usually ask them questions so that they come up with the answer.
Yeah.
So things like, where do you think that comes from?
Mm.
Or do you know why you feel that way? Have you ever, is that something you've thought about or considered? And typically they say, yes, maybe they've never wanted to admit it. Or I see a lot of times in that moment, they'll have an aha, like, gosh, I never really thought about it, but I think it comes from my dad never being there,
Yeah.
and it'll just come out. And I mean, I always have
Mm.
Kleenex readily available when I meet with people.
Wow.
I don't get offended by the fact that people always cry in here because it's healing. It's a healing space.
Absolutely. And then, and I'm sure you encourage people to see a therapist, but to be able to combine this, okay, so we're unlocking some things that are the root issues here, but now we also have a health problem to attend to. So you're able to work on some of the health symptomology as well and really start a thorough healing process.
Absolutely. And another thing that happens with when we were kind of mentioning as patients in the traditional world, we were talking about earlier, we were taught, okay, this is what you do. See you in 6 months.
Mhm.
The other piece that happens in traditional medicine is that we're chopped into pieces.
Hmm.
oh, that's,
Yeah.
that's a skin issue. So you need to go see a dermatologist. I can help
Mhm.
with that. Or that's a counseling issue. So it's like we are all one piece. So recognizing that our mental, spiritual affects our physical
Yeah.
and vice versa. And we're all one package. So we need to view and treat and heal ourselves as a whole.
It's amazing.
It's
Mm.
powerful. Yeah.
It is. Well, and one of the things I've experienced with you and I'm experiencing right now is a stillness, a quietness. Is that an important aspect of you? And how have you cultivated that?
Absolutely. I and it was not always because I have had a history of trauma and childhood. And so just like I was mentioning earlier, there's un socially unacceptable and acceptable, well, achieving, that's a that's a socially acceptable. Look at you.
Very
Wow,
acceptable.
for
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
But it was really I was numbing out
Mm.
and I just didn't want to stay still and quiet
Right.
because then I would feel, and that was too painful. And so it eventually showed up as disease, an autoimmune disease, because again, you can shove it down, but that doesn't ever work. You really have to go through it to heal it. And
Oh,
the the slowing down and being still and sitting with myself and being quiet and sitting with hurtful things was something I had to learn, and I learned the hard way. But I now know it's essential for me to have true health and also to make wise decisions in things like my business.
yeah. How much of true health is being able to tolerate pain and experience pain, to sit with it?
So there was a book that I used to read my daughter called "We're Going Through the Forest," and it was one of those cool books where you pull the tab and the leaves would move and the clouds
Mm.
float along. And so it was this little interactive book and I loved it. But so it was a really cute experience to have with her. But
Yeah.
the idea of you can't go under the forest, you can't go around it, you can't go over it, you have to go through it. Just like I was saying about like you have to go through it, heal it. It's I believe it's essential
Mm.
because again, our body is listening, our cells are listening constantly and listening to the environment, what's happening. And if we don't move through it and heal it, it's going to feel like that threat is still there and react
Yeah.
accordingly. And that's how it shows up as autoimmune issues, as cancer, etc.
Yeah. Absolutely. The same book I was referring to earlier has the statement, I think it's by Young, um, the whatever psychic issue we're having, if it's addiction, if it's neuroses, is an expression of some type of pain that we're avoiding. And I'd heard that before, but reading it in this particular context and related to our conversation, it's like we create by not being willing to experience this thing that maybe as a child we thought would kill us, like this feeling that we're not allowed to have, or this desire, or expression. It's like we build this up, like I can't feel it, and I nearly kill myself in all these other ways. Like the it's like the what is that statement? The medicine's worse than the cure. What is it? You know that um and this turning toward it, the being with the pain and the discomfort seem you think it's going to kill you, and then you realize it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, as kids, we're very dependent on people around us, and
Completely
we
dependent.
don't have
Our life depends on it.
we don't have absolutely, and that's a huge statement because that's what drives us to ignore, shove things down just to get through. But then we become adults and we still can continue those patterns, or we can choose, like, oh, I'm not a kid that's dependent on people and things around me. I can choose how this is going to look and do something differently.
That's right. Well, your health journey saved your life.
For sure.
For those of us that may be recognizing this, maybe we've been through a few cycles of this and we know that there's something that we need to tend to, but we're not quite ready to go down the path. What's the first thing that we could do or should do to start to examine?
Well, I think seeing a counselor is a good place to start, or seeing a functional provider or a life coach, health coach. Just to have someone guide you, a mentor, even. I've had many mentors in my life for different things, and getting it out and getting someone else to help you unpack it and chip away, and and even accountability, or just
Yeah.
helping you with that, learning to listen and
Mhm.
move through it. I think that's a good place to start.
Absolutely. Well, I think you're speaking to know that you're not alone, right? I think that's part of what we've tricked ourselves into is I've got to solve this and I'm the only one who can. And if we find ourselves in that space, that's a lie.
Absolutely.
There's so many people who've walked down the same path and so many people ready to help. I think that's part of the beauty of your work, Julie, is that you can speak to this because it's been your experience.
For sure.
And isn't that the most beautiful calling?
Yes. Love it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Julie, for joining Inner Work. I've cried. I don't know if you cried, but I've had such a incredible journey with you over these last several years. And I'm so excited for our listeners to get to hear about your work, about your journey, how you've answered this call in your own life, and how functional medicine can really be such an incredible support and an opening of a new chapter. So thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for Inner Work, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Thank you so much.